Hi, my name is Micah, and I want to give you an overview on how to get a material list for your metal roof. There's some tips to get you going here. You're going to want to first understand metal roofing. I'm going to assume you got that down most of the way, but give you some pointers. Then you're going to need to be able to put together a bird's eye drawing. That's going to be very helpful to create an accurate panel list, what they call cut list. And then from that, you can also figure out your trim list and accessories. All right, how are we going to understand metal roofing? To gain knowledge, I would recommend finding some quality sources from manufacturers such as Union Corrugating. They're a large manufacturer that puts out these simple 3D animation videos, and yeah, it just gets right to the point, shows you what to do. Another good source, Sheffield Metals, sheffieldmetals.com. Click Learning Center, and that's on the top bar. You're going to be able to see lots of videos and articles. Once you get the basics down, then I would say go to your actual manufacturer. Who's making the roof? Check out their installation manual. Here's a detail by Metallian for end wall, showing Z closure, screws, butyl clay, caulking, and then gable trim detail. You're going to learn the jargon of your manufacturer. They often have trim sheets. Here's a trim sheet for the clip lock panel on their website. All right, so once we have the knowledge down, we're going to want to get a bird's eye view drawing. And if you're stumped because you have a complicated roof, I recommend going to Google Maps. From that image, satellite imagery, you're going to be able to easily sketch out your outline on a piece of paper. From that, draw all the rest of your roof lines, like your ridge line, hip, valley. I would annotate hip and valley because on a drawing it's not always easy to tell. And once we got that done, we can break apart the roof sections. And there is a website called buildmyown.cabin.com. This article is installing stainless steel metal roof. Shows a nice little example of a bird's eye drawing, and then it shows it broken up into sections. I also recommend tricountymetals.com. I actually put a link here, and what they do is they show it broken up into sections, and then it also shows the pitch. We want to do that is important info because the pitch will change how much you stagger your lengths. So once we get all the relevant info, we can go to building our panel list. And going back to this Tri-County Metals article, you're going to find that you first need to know how much your panel covers. So in this example, they give a 3-foot wide coverage area. So here you have a 52-foot eave line. And if you have 3-foot panels, you're going to divide 52 divided by 3, which gets you 17 1/3. So if you round up, you'll need 18 pieces at the length, 19 foot long. The length will vary depending on how big your ridge cavity is. If you have ridge venting, that is, that'll take away a little bit of length. And then usually there's an inch or so overhang, give or take. Maybe 1.5 inches is more common. And then if it's a 16-inch panel, that's very common. If it's like a house roof, snap together panel, you would take 52 times that by 16, or no, sorry, times it by 12 to give you the total inches, and then divide by 16 to give the number of pieces. So once we have an area like a valley, for instance, we're going to want to do some more planning. As this article talks about, it's pretty nice to get the ribs lined up. You see the ribs here lined up to the ribs here equal aesthetic pleasure. We all like symmetry. Unless it's not visible, you don't care. So that will take some planning because you're going to have a partial panel here most likely, and maybe a partial panel here to get the ribs all meeting up at the same place. This first panel, of course, is going to be the same length, 19 feet. The second panel, though, you're going to want to stagger shorter. Now, in some cases, you can actually run full-length panels, and the cutoffs can be flipped and used over here. The cutoff here can be used as your first panel up here, and the cutoff here can be used for this first panel over there. Now, if this is your first time, or you're like most installers, you're not going to want to bother with flipping cutoffs. So you'll end up doing what most people do, and that is stagger it down. So you'll have one panel that is shorter than this panel, and that's what this whole, I really encourage you to look up this article and go over it. This is what it's explaining how to do that. So in this example, you have a 412 pitch roof. So we go over here, we see 412 slope means that this 36-inch coverage panel is actually going to be reduced by 38 inches, given the pitch factor there of 1.054. Now, if you don't have a 36-inch panel, say you're doing a 16-inch panel, that's just fine. Take 16 inches times 1.0541, and you'll get 16.86. Now, we don't get that exact when it comes to making a cut list, but that panel, instead of being 17 inches shorter, you'd probably want to do 16 inches shorter. That way you have some wiggle room. And then the next panel would be another 16 inches shorter than that one. And that's what's so nice about this chart and understanding it. Now that we have the number of panels and the number of lengths, one thing we'll need to determine is if we have an extra panel or two. And as a rule of thumb, you're going to want one extra panel at the longest length. Back to our example, if you have a bunch of valley cuts like this roof, I would recommend at least 2 extra panels, if not 3. And they might not be, maybe you'd have 2 extra panels at your longest length, like in section F, and then have another panel that's not quite the longest because, you know, likely it'll be one of these areas you'll mess up and you won't need a whole extra long one like right here. I'd like to go over a cut sheet I made on a spreadsheet. I prefer spreadsheets. They make it easy for the manufacturer to look at numbers, and it makes it easy to build lists. Like say you have 1 foot increments that you want to drop down. Well, with Google Sheets or Excel, you can highlight 2, drag down, and it will automatically deduct 1 for you. So data entry is faster with a spreadsheet. Things are very clear. Section A, I have it broken up into sections so that way your panels are organized. We have 81 panels at 15 foot 10 inches. I just did feet only, 15.83. That should be fine with a manufacturer, but it might be safest to just do inches only. Different ways to go about it. Moving on to the trim, we're going to want to list at least the trim profile. And again, refer to your manufacturer for, they might have a alphanumeric code. Then you want to put in the quantity. You want to put in how long of a trim piece, unless they only have 1 length, it might be unnecessary. And then you want to put a pitch if it's such a thing like a pitch sensitive trim, such as a ridge cap. I'll share this spreadsheet with you via Google Sheets. And if you go to the description of this video, you'll find a link. I'm just hoping that can help someone speed things up. You can use it as a template, hopefully get you going faster. All right, so for the trim list, we're gonna want to make sure we have enough overlap. Some manufacturers have 10 foot 3 inches already built, so they have a 3-inch overlap already built in. That may or may not be adequate, depends on the trim piece. Just refer to your install guide and your roofer friend. You have cleats you don't want to forget about in some cases. Again, refer to the install manual. In this case, you see a support. They call it gable support. It's kind of like a cleat. It's kind of hard to see, but it's a J shape, and that gets pinned down first, and then your either rib or false rib field bent panel edge is now secured by that, and then your gable trim is supported on top of that. So little pieces like that you'll want to include on the trim list. Next in our list is metal closures. I know a metal closure isn't a trim piece, but in some cases it'll get added to the trim list. Right here we see a side view, and if we go to the trim list, a metal closure here has the tabs, but the Z closure, at least this is Metallian Industries, This is just a linear piece, meaning it just like the rest of the trim pieces, there's no tabs on it. You would just put caulking on the sides. Anyway, point is if you have like an end wall detail, you might want a Z closure, another little piece you don't want to forget about. All right, do we need extra trim pieces? That's a good question. I recommend we toggle back over to our Tri-County Metals article, and if we scroll down, they have a section on trim. And if you read that, you'll notice that they are recommending get an extra trim piece for every single one. And let's assess that. I mean, if this is your first time doing it, I would say go ahead. But realistically, most people are going to just stick with 90 feet of ridge cap. I would say get an extra piece of gable trim. The drip edge, you barely need another one anyways. Most people are going to stick with 14. Valleys, probably just stick with 4. That one, though, could get messed up. And end wall, you probably won't need a third piece. So the more you order, the more you'll finesse when it comes to whether or not you need extra trim. Likely, we'll want to add accessories to our list, and starting off with screws. Most of the time, when you're figuring screws, if you take the total square footage, you can just get 80% of that will give you the total number of screws you need. That's a little cheat. So if you had a 2,000 square foot roof, you need about 1,600 screws, round up to maybe 7 bags, 1,750. Underlayment is not all created equal. You might want to talk to your manufacturer about what underlayments they recommend. High temperature rated ice and water shields. You don't want granulated ice and water shields. A whole host of things come into play there. Ridge vents and closures. If we were to go to Metallian Industries, for instance, they have accessories that you can see the pipe flashings, the closures. There's this stick-on product, not so secure, but might get the job done for you. This is a lot more secure. It's perforated metal with a fire-rated vent thing in there. So lots of different accessories. If we go to the spreadsheet I made, you see the low-profile screws, like assuming you're doing a snap-together roof or standing seam roof. Stitch screws. You'd want that for metal-to-metal applications, like connecting the trim to your Z-closure or to the rib if you don't have Z-closure. And the 1-inch hex painted screw, that's going to be like for the face of your gable trim, different applications like that. Don't forget your paint pen or paint bottle. You got butyl tape, different sizes, 3/4 inch wide. It's kind of a good middle of the road size there. You got sometimes colors of caulking. Novaflex is a brand of silicone. Metallian offers forest green. They offer clear as well, and different colors. You have pipe boots, as I kind of showed earlier. That is going to be either high temp, if it's a split boot for like an electrical or something, that's a way to get around that. If you have a really steep pitch, you might want the severe slope one, and then here's your standard one. Most of the time, you're going to get a number 2 for just your normal plumbing pipe. All right, well, I'll let you get that material list together so you can put on that metal roof. Be safe up there. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and thanks for watching.